Good evening. I'm going to call the public hearing meeting to order. Before I read an opening statement, I want to announce that we are going to have another scheduled public hearing on Wednesday, December 4th at 5 p.m. So I will read my opening statement. Good evening. I'm Loudoun Water Board Chair Terry Allen, and I open this public hearing. If you wish to speak, please take this opportunity to sign up with the board secretary, Jewel. So this is a public hearing regarding the proposed user rates, reclaimed water rates, availability charges, and other fees and charges. The authority, upon recommendation of staff on October 10th, 2024, passed a resolution signifying its intention to adopt proposed rates for user rates, reclaimed water rates, availability charges, and other fees and charges. Notice of this public hearing setting forth the proposed rate schedule was given in the Loudoun Times-Mirror newspaper having general circulation in Loudoun County. This publication appears in the issues of October 18th and October 25th, 2024. In addition, notice was provided on the Loudoun Water website. A recording of today's hearing will be posted on the Loudoun Water website. After a brief presentation by authority staff, members of the public will have an opportunity to be heard concerning the proposed rates. Again, please be sure to sign up with the board secretary if you wish to speak. Each speaker will be permitted 3 minutes to speak. Each speaker will only be allowed to speak once. After calling the names signed up to speak, I will ask if there are any other members of the public wishing to speak. Once no more members of the public indicate they wish to speak, I will ask for a motion from the board to adjourn the board meeting until December 4th. After that, the authority will consider a resolution to adopt the advised rates at its regular board meeting on December 12th, 2024, to become effective on January 1st, 2025. I now turn the floor over to Dave Hyder with Stantec for a presentation on the proposed fees. Mr. Hyder.
Thank you, Chairman Allen. Perfect. Okay. So in terms of my presentation this evening, I'm going to take you through the user rates. We'll talk a little bit about background and the process that we went through for the rate study. We'll talk about the recommended rate adjustments, look at both the fixed charges as well as the consumption charges, and then provide some local comparisons. We'll look at the reclaimed water rates and a recommendation for the reclaimed water rates going forward, and then wrap up with some developer charges, which include availability charges and other fees for services that Loudoun Water provides. So starting off with user rates, just a little bit of background about the process and the overall study. So we started the study last October, so we've been engaged for about 13 months now. Working collaboratively with Loudoun Water Board and Loudoun Water staff, we've served as the independent rate consultant. And through the process, what we've done is completed an independent evaluation of the cost of providing service. So we look at what does it cost to provide water service today and into the future, as well as sewer service, reclaimed water service, and then what does it cost to provide capacity to new customers joining the system. All of that did culminate in an information sharing educational workshop with the board, which took place on September 25th. And then as a result of that, as Chairman Allen mentioned, the board did provide approval and resolution of intent, and that brings us to the public hearing this evening. In terms of communication regarding the proposed rates, there was a public advertisement in the Loudoun Times-Mirror. A letter was sent to all customers of Loudoun Water. And then there's also been technical memorandums as well as meetings with industry groups, home builders to discuss the recommended rates through that process. And then ultimately this evening, we're here to solicit public feedback from any and all interested parties regarding the rate study. So what's recommended for user rates is shown here. So we are recommending for water and sewer user rates 7% increases over the next 3 years. And what that essentially means to your typical residential customer using about 21,000 gallons per quarter. You can see in 2025, and this would begin January 1st of each of these years, be about a $17 per quarter increase. In the first year, second year, it'd be an increase of a little bit under $18. And then in the third year, it would be a little bit over $19. But it's important to remember that's a quarterly bill, so 4 bills per year. And that's the increase. In future years, we are estimating that there will need to be adjustments. But typically, Loudon Water conducts a rate study every 3 years, so that would be evaluated in the future. In terms of the user rates, there's really two components. There's the fixed charge. So this is a charge that's assessed regardless of water use. And for all residential customers, they all pay the same fixed charge. You can see the current quarterly fixed charge for water is $40.15. And then for non-residential customers, the fixed charge is scaled based on meter size. These charges then in the future, 25, 26, 27, all reflect that 7% increase that I mentioned. So those are the proposed fixed charges going forward for water. Similarly, on the sewer side, all customers that are residential pay the same. So again, all residential customers, so single family homes, all pay the same fixed charge. And then commercial customers pay based upon their meter size. And obviously the larger your entity, the more water you're going to use, therefore the larger your meter size would be. So the other component of the usage rates are the usage rates or the consumption rates. And these are rates for actual metered water use or sewer use. On the residential side, there's a 3-tier inclining block rate. So essentially, the more water you use, once you step into some of the higher tiers, the more expensive the water becomes. As I mentioned, the typical residential customer uses about 21,000 gallons per quarter. So they're staying in that first tier, paying $2.94 per 1,000 gallons. And then going forward, as I mentioned before, the recommended increases are 7%. And so all of these usage rates reflect those 7% increases. Commercial customers, there's a 2-tiered rate structure. So when you use water within the amount that you've purchased or the capacity you've purchased, you stay in tier 1. If you use above that, you go into tier 2. And that's per 1,000 gallons. Again, 7% increases across the board. And then the sewer side is much simpler. It's just a uniform rate per 1,000 gallons. Everybody pays the same rate for the metered water use for their sewer rate, $5.76 currently. And as I mentioned before, we are recommending 7% increases going forward. So a little bit of background in terms of why we're recommending what we're recommending. And the key drivers really are shown here. The first is that you do have a really significant capital improvement plan. Over the next 10 years, you've identified about $1.5 billion worth of capital investments that are required. And those capital investments really are a blend of repair and replacement of existing system assets, as well as expanding the system to accommodate growth. It's really a combination of those two. So funding that capital plan is going to place pressure on the utility. The other key driver is that the actual cost escalation over the last 3 years has been significantly higher than originally forecasted. So as I mentioned earlier, Loudon Water does adopt a 3-year rate plan. The last rate plan was adopted before the recent spike in inflation, and so it didn't contemplate that. As a result, just some examples here, just over the past 3 years, power cost for Loudon Water have increased 50%. Chemical cost just over the past 2 years have gone up 40%. And then many of those key inputs have impacted your bulk water and sewer providers. So Fairfax Water purchase costs have increased at 42% over the last 3 years. And then treatment services from DC Water have increased at 36% over the last 3 years. So all of those increases have significantly increased the cost of providing water and sewer service within the service area. You also have to address funding a repair and replacement reserve to make sure we have adequate funds to address the replacement needs of the system. So that's what's happened most recently. As we go forward and we're forecasting in our financial plan, we did have to make some assumptions in terms of how costs are going to change, growth on the system. So we did apply some cost escalation factors, personal services, benefits, and electricity. We're assuming those are going to continue to grow at 5% per year, general operating at about 3% per year going forward. In terms of growth on the system, that's represented as in equivalent residential connections or ERCs. We are using the county's forecast for growth, but we have reduced that by 20%, realizing that Loudon Water doesn't serve the entire county, and also to provide some level of conservatism. In terms of funding the capital improvement plan, About 22% of the capital improvement plan would be funded through user rates, so revenue generated pay-go from the system. And then we're also anticipating that you're going to have to borrow over that projection period. So estimating about 162 million between fiscal year 2025 and 2029 in terms of borrowings. So those are the assumptions that go into the forecast. The final component is just kind of show you a comparison of where you stand against some of your neighboring jurisdictions. And so Loudon Water is down at the bottom in orange. Again, this is for a typical residential customer using 21,000 gallons per quarter. Current water and sewer bill is about $240 per quarter. With the 7% increase that we're recommending, it would go to $256 per quarter. It is important to note that with the exception of Fairfax County, these other communities are current rates, so they don't demonstrate any future adjustments. And we do know that many of them, I know for a fact that Prince William County is holding a public hearing this evening to adopt increased rates as well. So it's a bit of an apples to oranges comparison, but we believe you'll continue to be at the bottom going forward in terms of the bill comparisons. So reclaimed water rates next. Reclaimed water rates, we're also recommending that they go up 7% per year. They're closely aligned with the cost of providing service. The reclaimed water is linked to the Broad Run Water Reclamation Facility, which is seeing increased costs. So again, we're recommending that they increase at 7% over the next 3 years. And what that looks like in terms of the actual rates, the current rate per 1,000 gallons for reclaimed water is $1.80. And then with those 7% increases, you can see it would go up to $2.21 by 2027. All right, then shifting gears and talking a little bit about one-time charges. So these are developer charges, availability fee charges associated with customers joining the system. So currently, availability charges are assessed for new customers to pay their fair share of additional facilities that are needed to serve their demand. So Loudon Water has a philosophy of growth pays for growth. And these charges are intended to recover a cost of providing additional treatment, capacity, transmission, so sending the water out, distribution, storage, and collection facilities. But these charges are not intended to fully fund the capital improvement plan. As I mentioned earlier, a fair portion of the capital improvement plan is repair and replacement. These really are funded to fund the growth portion of the capital plan. So availability charges are charged based on meter size for water and sewer. You can see the current charges shown here. And what we're recommending is a 3-year phase-in, so 25, 26, and 27. An average increase on the water side of about 4.5% to bring the water availability charges up to the cost of what it costs to provide service. And then on the sewer side, it's about an 8.5% increase on average over the next 3 years. Water and sewer combined on average is about 7% per year over the next 3 years. And then we do anticipate in future years, post 2027, that additional increases will probably be required. And again, these are just one-time charges for somebody that's joining the system. Comparison here, the blue is the water availability charge, red is the sewer availability charge. You can see where you currently stack up compared to some other utilities, and then where you'd be in that first year of the phase-in in 2025. Same premise holds here in that this is somewhat of an apples and oranges comparison, and that with the exception of Fairfax County, it does not reflect the fact that other jurisdictions will be increasing their availability charges in fiscal year 25. So the last topic is other fees and charges. So there are a number of ancillary fees typically related to development that Loudon Water charges for these specific services that are provided. So as part of the rate study, we did evaluate what's the cost of actually providing those services. So what materials and labor are required. Given recent inflation, we are seeing significant increases in the cost of providing these various services. We're also recommending some of the structure of some of the ancillary fees be changed. So for example, the inspection fees currently include a minimum. We're recommending that that be changed to just a base charge plus the linear feet of inspection that's completed. We're recommending that you update the percentage applied to plan review and inspection fees for nonlinear projects. And then you currently have a connection charge, and we're recommending you change that to a meter charge that would cover the cost of meter handling, the labor and materials associated with supplying the meter, plus the cost of the meter. And then our recommendations are that we bring the ancillary fees up to the current cost in 2025, and then increase them at the inflationary levels of 3% in 26 and 27. So I know this is rather small. These are some of the more significant developer charges or ancillary fees, the first being plan review. You can see the base charge, what it currently is for water, sewer, and reclaimed, and then the adjustment in 2025, bringing that up to the cost, and then the 3% are applied in future years. Same thing with the inspection fees. The change here, though, inspection fees is rather than the minimum, we are recommending the base charge be charged in 2025. And then record drawings, CCTVs are also brought up to current cost, and then inflationary increases. And then way down at the bottom, the way that plan review inspection fees are currently charged for nonlinear projects is it's 2.5% of the times the cost of the project. And given the magnitude of some of the nonlinear projects, we're recommending that you scale that down. So you can see a sliding scale there. If it's up to a $5 million project, it'd be 2.5% of that project. If it's 5 to 10 million, it'd be about 2%. And then you can see how it continues to scale. That would more appropriately align with the cost of associated with plan review and inspection fees for those types of projects. And then here's all the other ancillary fees. Again, we've looked at the cost associated with each of these. What does it cost Loudon Water to provide them? We're recommending, again, the adjustment up to what it costs to provide that service in 2025. And then in most cases, an inflationary increase in 26 and 27. Most customers don't incur these types of costs. These are really more related to new development. So in terms of next steps, I know this has changed a little bit. There will be the public hearing on December 5th, but ultimately then, I'm sorry, December 4th. But then ultimately then, I'm believing it's still the case that you'll consider action on the final rates December 12th. Public comments can be provided in written form as well as on that December 4th meeting up until December 12th by noon. And then if the rates are approved, they would be effective for all bills rendered on or after January 1st. And that would apply to availability charges and other fees as well. And with that, I turn it back to the chairman.
Thank you for that presentation. It was very helpful. I will now recognize members of the public who have signed up to speak. I will call your name and you can approach the podium and let us know your thoughts. You will have 3 minutes of which to speak. And then after we go through the people who are in attendance, we will call on the people who are online. So the first person to speak is Thomas Day.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Chairman, thank you for this opportunity. I provided a written comment. I would like to see the hand of everybody who's had a chance to read that. None. One. I'm not here to be a problem, but my job for 30 years was to evaluate proposals like this for the federal government. In the course of my career, I saved over $21 billion. What I see is a proposal that would not stand a moment in my typical evaluation. It is not a very good proposal. And I can only say that I believe that you are being presented something that is very far out of line. I can only encourage your board members to read what I put there. I only had about an hour to put that together. I see nothing identifying why, when the producer price index is running less than 2% and the consumer price index is running about 3%, you are more than doubling the inflation rate to the typical Loudoun County person. Uh, Don't think I can make a whole lot of other comments. I do believe you should review those comments and act accordingly. I don't believe you should impose this rate increase on the county. I think the best what you should be doing is putting together a smaller rate increase for 1 year, review this proposal, and then come back and make some necessary changes. I don't know that I can help you in the next 30 days. I have my own projects that I work on, but I think that will conclude my comments for this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Day. Next is Dr. Stan Soretti.
If you'd like.
Sure.
Testing. I did submit a few suggestions. I've been here since '88, so I've seen a lot of rate increases, but I don't have a particular problem with the suggestion of the consultants. What I do have a problem with is some of the structural things in terms of what this board is doing with the future of water in this county. And so my first question was, what are we doing to increase supply long-term? And I listed, I don't know whether it's the Potomac River. There may be a good reason that we don't tap the Potomac River as much as we do, if we do. Why in the world do we get as much water from Fairfax as we do? And where do they get their water? I'm guessing from the Potomac River, but I didn't check that. I said, does it make sense to buy 1 or 2 large rock quarries and fill them up with water for a period of times? My background, by the way, is an engineer, MBA doctor, so I'm a math guy. And I look at the structure of things, and I'm very concerned about the risk involved in the way you've set up the structure of this business. I'm a business guy. And can we get water cheaper from Maryland or West Virginia? And somebody looking at the big picture in terms of supply. And I always worry about the poor people. My church gives backpack buddies to 75 families in this rich county to take food home for the kids who don't have enough to eat on the weekends. So we need a way to take care of the poorer people in this county. And I said, I fully expect that power rates are going to go down in the next few years. And do we have a contingency plan if that happens to reduce rates? And likewise with chemicals. Like chemical rates are going to go down, not in the first year perhaps, but certainly in the second or third year. And why in the world don't we charge a higher percentage to data centers? God bless those ugly data centers. And I don't know how much we gave away to get them, but other than the fact that from my view, they put us in the nuclear hotspot if we ever have a war. So that's really all I have. I'm more interested in the long-term structure and supply of water here, the 7%. I pay $100 a month. I use too much water. My grass is green. It got killed last year with the dry session. So, and my water pressure is always good. Thank you very much. And so think about some of the long-term structural stuff that affects your ability to deliver. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Surratt.
And you have my suggestions in writing.
Yes. The third person is Teddy Outland.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity coming before the board today. Typically, my day is pretty full. I received a letter last night when I got home, so I apologize and I have a chance to go through the 40-page report. I was only able to get into most of the executive summary. So I'm not in agreement with this 7% increase. Current inflation is 2.4%. That's 3 times the amount. I didn't really see a real justification for the increase. either the forecasters, they got it wrong, or somewhere there's a management issue. Feel like the problem been going on for several years since the last increase. I don't know why it was not identified earlier and why it was not addressed earlier to get to this point, that why we got to go out with 3 years with a 7% increase. As someone mentioned this earlier, it's the tax and burden on the families of Loudoun counties. You know that food prices continue to rise, gasoline prices are just starting to go down. Who knows what's going to happen next year? But we just need to take a look and maybe get another independent assessment, another evaluation. I look at data every day. I evaluate data as part of my job and doing it for the past 31 years. And I draw conclusions from that and present it to my leadership to make decisions. So I did not see a lot of data in here that I would use to go forward with this. There are some pieces that are missing, some underlying factors to address the determinants for to make this justification of going forward. And I ask you to relook at it again. On the chart that I have, I saw that Loudoun County was in the middle of the 11 local governments as far as water fees. I did not see this chart that were presented here tonight. And most of the counties, the 4 or 5 that were in front of Loudoun, they were much smaller jurisdiction. So again, I think as the good doctor mentioned, when this building was first built, I was in the county at the time, and it was supposed to be a high-tech water reclamation, sewage treatment, all of that. It didn't ever specify what percentage of the county would be in service by this building. But then when I read the report, I found out we can begin water from Fairfax County, and DC Sewage is treating part of our sewage. I don't know what percentage. Again, those things I did not see. Maybe it was later on in the 40-page report. But we need to look at other resources, other avenues that we can address these issues. Maybe perhaps even invest in building our own type reclamation project or even a water reservoir. I mean, continue to kick the can down the road. You're asking the residents to pay more and more and more, but yet there's nothing being presented for them that you got our best interests at heart. So again, I just have wanted to get opportunity, let you know that we are concerned. This is my first time being here because it's a serious matter. I usually don't show up at these events if it's something that's really insignificant or something that doesn't require a great amount of time to put into. But this is just too much to ask for. 3 consecutive years of 7%. Yes, it looks great when it's broken down on a yearly basis. It looks great when broken down on a quarterly basis. But you look at the totality of it all, it doesn't look that good. It does not, and it does not bode well for Loudoun County too. Looking at the surcharge here that you're going to add on to the developers, you said there was, according to the reading, there was a big substantial amount that was under or undervalued, if the work was undervalued, but yet you only charge them 3%. What are the numbers? I need some discrete factors so I can make the determination for myself. Again, I just want to say thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Outland. So online, we're going to go to online now. The first person who is on our list is David Garman. And I might caution people as your name gets called that you might need to unmute your phone to speak. So just a reminder, but is Mr. Garman available?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, good evening, ladies and gentlemen and members of the board. Like the previous speaker, I became aware of this increase via a letter I received about 2 days ago, so I haven't had a chance to study the report. But I must admit that I'm disappointed in the rate increases, especially when I'm looking at the 2023 financial report and it states that the economic outlook is listed as positive. It seems rather extreme that what's going to amount to about a 25% increase is what we're looking at. Like other speakers have said, I think we should tie the increase to inflation or consider that. I'm interested in hearing what alternative fee structures were considered, and I understand that that might be described in the report. And I recommend that an additional study be conducted to verify that the proposed structure is appropriate. And with that, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Garman. I appreciate your feedback. The next person to speak is Lacey Sims. Ms. Sims, are you there?
How do I get to the big screen?
You're not muted because I just heard you talking on your phone.
That was another attendee speaking. I
Okay.
don't see Miss Sims.
All right, I will move on to Manish Kumar. Are you there, Mr. Kumar?
See Mr. Kumar.
Okay. We will move on to Oleg Ravun. Mr. Ravun, are you there?
Yes, good evening. I don't have much to add to what other participants said. I just want to add that it's a very short notice. I received the letter just 2 days ago, so many people just didn't see it yet. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
That's it.
Kumar. Or, excuse me, Mr. Ravun. The next speaker is Lamar Hadidi. Mr.
Do not see
Hadidi,
Mr. Hadidi on the call, sir.
and then Mr. Outland is on again.
Oh, he changed his mind, of course, and came in person.
And then the last person signed up is Shannon Pezaliski.
Mazowski.
Sorry about that.
No worries. I too did not receive the letter until yesterday, so I have not had a chance to review the report, but I am in agreement with what the others have said about, you know, a 7% increase year after year seems unjustified when it's a collective roughly 23 to 25% since it's cumulative on top of each other. I have not had a chance to understand yet what the data centers will be providing towards these rate increases, but I'd be interested in exploring that more as I understand that they take up much of our resources in Loudoun County. So I would very much like to see more information about that and would like a little more transparency across the board about this rate increase. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Is there anybody else who is either in the room or online that wishes to speak that we know of?
Well, I would just repeat to the future structural concerns I have when we have a different organization providing a lot of our sewage processing. And we have this reliance on Fairfax, and I hardly trust anybody in Fairfax, to be blunt. So for me, I'm much more concerned about the sustainability of this business long-term. 7% or 2%, I think the work that I challenge this group to is to really look at the structure of your business and how sustained it is. Because if somebody else controls your costs, Fairfax or the sewage department, then what we pay here gets crushed because of the risk you're taking.
Thank you. I appreciate your comments. And one of the reasons why we're having a second meeting is that a lot of people got their notices late. So we're trying to offer the opportunity for people who did not have enough time to review the information and pose questions. You can always pose questions to staff and they will do their best to answer them. You can always come back at the next meeting with more information. So before we conclude the meeting, one of our board members is going to make a motion that's necessary. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that we adjourn this meeting to Wednesday, December 4th at 5 p.m. for continued public comment.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
I would like someone to make a motion to adjourn the public hearing.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.